You want to stop getting destroyed at draft night at your local game store? Well, this is the video for you. This is 10 mistakes to not make when you are drafting. And you may be wondering, isn't the whole point of this channel to be a new Magic the Gathering player in his journey to Mythic? You're exactly right. Now, these are going to be some of the mistakes that I am making. So you get a look into some of the new players so you can destroy them at the table. And I'm just going to share all the mistakes that I'm making to try to help myself work through them. To start, the first big thing that I was always making at draft nights was picking the most rare card. I would always pick the rare or the mythic in the first card. And in this draft, I am going to pick the Clay Fire Bricks because I'm very comfortable playing white, and it's an awesome card. It's an artifact that you can then transform later in the game. I think it's a 5 cost, but it's great. And I am using Untapped GG here. Also, Draft Sim is great. Obviously, I'm unsponsored. I got 52 subscribers. But this is just a way to help me see the good cards and the bad cards and different types that I can do. Another mistake that I was kind of making as well was if I got a white card first, it's going to be a white deck. And that's not always the best case. Even if you get a good card first, you may want to go a different route. But back to the first is just ignoring signals. You got to pay attention to the cards being passed to you, and you don't need to overvalue rarity. It's kind of points 1 and point 2. And one of the things that I'm not good at still is recognizing what color archetypes are open. It hasn't even dawned on me until doing some practice and talking to some people in the community that I should be paying attention to what cards that I have. And that's kind of obvious. You're probably thinking that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But it's true. New players are just thinking about their deck. They got tunnel vision. So just keep in mind that when you are drafting. And then you definitely want to adjust your strategy based on those signals. If you see a ton of blue and your first 3 picks are green, you might want to reroute. And the second one, the tip number 2 is definitely overvaluing rarity. Like I said earlier, in my first 3 drafts, I would, in the first pack, if there's a mythic, if there's a rare, I'm grabbing it. Most of those cards are just in a binder. I didn't even use them in the deck because they'd be like a blue or red and I was building a white deck. Yeah, just don't do that. And tip number 3 is something that I always do. I just draft cards. And you can see the theme here. I have Clay Fire Bricks, I got Armored King Collar, and Pathfinding Axe Draw. I just grabbed my second Axe Draw. And I'm not even looking at mana curve. I'm not even thinking about turns 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just taking best card. And sure, maybe that's a strategy. I love this card so much. Iron Paw is so sick. It's such a good 2-drop. But I'm not even thinking about turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4. You'll see what this deck turns into. I don't really pay any attention to mana base or curve or anything or how I'm going to get lands. Yeah, it's not even crossing my mind. I have no idea if I have a good distribution of low, mid, and high cards. I'm just picking the best card. And then you also have to think about including enough lands in the caves, and definitely in Ixalan, etc. And you know more about this than me. But then you also want to look at mana fixing. Cards that can help you produce multiple colors. There's a few in this. There's not a lot of dual lands. There's a few, but not a ton. And you just don't see them often in draft. So that may not really help in Ixalan that much. Now, the next one is going to be failure to prioritize any sort of removal. Now, there's Petrify and some other cards that I know, but I couldn't name 5 removal spells in the Ixalan set. And that's just a new player not even thinking about removal or planning ahead or using certain websites. Like I think MTG Arena has a really good site that ranks all of the different kinds of cards. And it's a great little tool. It shows you everything that you would ever need. The ranking, they're I don't know how they rank it, but it's a great little system for just looking at what cards are good, what cards are bad. I'm not doing any prep. I'm just showing up to play and have fun, and that's certainly fine. But that's what new players like myself are doing, and that's why a new player like myself is 1 in 18. So you're not even thinking about removal. There's also some good instance. I don't know what it's called, but you get a +1, +4 attacking. There's a really good green removal as well that I'm going to grab later. I think, it's Hutali's Final Strike. I am right now with this deck. I am 1-0. I won my first 2. So I won my first 2 matches. I won game 1 of 3. So this is a pretty good deck, mainly because I'm just picking Draft Sim. But I digress. Removal is important and definitely something when you're going to swing at white-blue decks, which are very, very popular. What I'm finding in Ixalan. The next one is going to be overextending. Just thinking about board wipes, removal spells, and how you're going to combat that. No, there's not a ton that you can do. There's some counter spells. There's a few things if you have blue, but I feel like in Ixalan, it's just very common to you kind of just got to go with it. There's not a ton of wipe. In black, there's some Death Touch. The Marionette is a good card, but you just want to be mindful of those cards and maybe grab a couple that can deal with that. And then definitely the risk and reward of committing to cards. The bad thing with this system, in my opinion, is I'm just picking cards. If it's the 32 like that one was, I'm just picking it. And you see, I'm eventually going to end up with 3 of Vitali's Final Strike, and I think 3 of the dinosaurs. Maybe that's going to be good. Maybe that's going to go bad. I am 1-0 with this deck in my first best of 3. There's still 2 best of 3s to be played. We'll see if we can go 3-0. But yeah, I'm not even thinking. I'm just picking. Neglecting the sideboard. I don't even really know what a sideboard is. And it's weird as a new player. When I lose the first game, I'm so perplexed. I'm like, I don't know what could have done better. And it's just because I'm not paying attention to how the other person's kind of playing. I'm just kind of just trying to highlight my deck the best as I can. So new players are not thinking about sideboarding. I'm not. So when you're playing a new player, just know they're not going to sideboard. You can probably make a couple of plays and easily beat them if they somehow get lucky and everything goes right. And maybe they hit some sick combo that they didn't even know what they were doing in the first game. That's another thing. So just practice effective sideboarding. And what I should be doing is when I'm goldfishing in those last 5 to 7 minutes before I start playing is thinking about my sideboard and how I could use them. If I need more creatures, bigger creatures, more instances, do I need to draw more cards? Those are the questions that, like, when I get into the heat of the battle, I mean, it's not really a battle. We're talking about cardboard and plastic sleeves, but I'm not thinking anything about the 40 cards in my deck. The next one is kind of similar. It's going to be ignoring signals from previous rounds, reviewing your opponent's deck strategies and card choices from previous rounds. The one mistake that I made the first 2 times that I went and played was not having a notebook handy. In the third time I did it, and it kind of helped. I have some notes of the decks I played, what cards really hurt me, just so I can study up on those cards for the next time. If you're new, you need to absorb. I don't know, maybe it's a good tip, maybe it's a bad tip, but I take notes on the cards that I notice that are working well in draft and different synergies that I can take into my next battles. You definitely got to take notes of the powerful cards and adapt for more drafts in the future based on what you're seeing. It's all good feedback, just like NFL teams watching film. Now, for on to number 7, we got playing too predictably. When you show off the synergy in an Ixalan, I feel like there's 10 different decks. You see some Descend decks, you see the white, you see the different mill decks from blue and black that just fill up the graveyard, and I've made videos on them. I'm terrible at them. And then you see some of the green decks with dinosaurs. You see some of the white decks that have a ton of humans, and then artifacts like Tinker's Tote, Old Tech Cloud Guard, the cats that can then make more cats and counters. I feel like those are predictable strategies. So you can always consider buffing. If you have the goblin that when something descends, you get a +1, you can maybe not play him right away when you're descending. I don't know. I probably play super predictably. So just think about ways to not play predictably. That's probably the weakest advice I can have, because I probably play super predictably, but I don't know what I'm doing. Second to last tip, it kind of goes back to number 1 and 2, is just not adjusting for the mid-draft. You got to always be open to changing colors or pivoting. Like I said earlier, when I drafted that first card, that whatever the first rare I got in all of my IRL drafts is what deck I was building. I have yet to adapt. Hopefully we do that tomorrow. If I have, maybe my first card is a sick blue card, but then I got some sick reds in the next 2, maybe we go blue-red, maybe we go Boris, maybe we go something else. But who knows? Just consider the overall. It goes back to just looking at the power level, the rarity, not overvaluing it, and then just don't ignore the curve and mana base. And think about how some of those cards are going to come out. And one of the things I just never do is think about how I'm going to win. I always think that I'm just going to get them down to 20, and that's how I'm going to win. But that's rarely what happens, because I've only won 1 game IRL, and that's because the other person was pretty much mana screwed the whole time, and I could do whatever. So just look at the signals. Try to just use your brain. Essentially, this is a 10-minute long video on not having tunnel vision and thinking when you're so overwhelmed and thinking about the next cards and all this stuff, and you got 20 more minutes to sleeve up your cards before the next battle. It's tough. Number 10, forgetting about synergy. Identify the key synergies before you go. This was something I did not do the first 2 times. I saw Explore, I saw Discover, I saw some of the different artifact sacking or the double-sided cards where you can mill, like the Waterlogged Hulk, you can mill it a ton of times and you can sacrifice it for like 3 and 2 islands or something like that. I didn't think about cards that could go with that. One of the decks that I built, it's in a previous video. It's a really bad deck. It's a Descend deck. I built that one really well. I wanted to draw cards, and all that deck did well was draw cards. It didn't really do anything amazing. And then I would always get to the card. I think it's a white card, but it would take different cards from your graveyard and exile them. I never descended 8 was kind of the theme of that video. I still hope you go watch it. But just think about the different synergies and how they play together. I feel like in Limited, you can do a little exploring. You can do some discovering. There's just so many different ways to put them all together. It's nice. And you just got to know the mechanics of the set that you're drafting and have an idea of how you can kind of go. You can descend, you can do caves, you can discover with some of those random caves. I've gotten a couple of them here. I think I have 2 of the white Discover Cave, and I have some of the Captivating Caves, which you can just tap for colorless mana. So this is kind of how the deck is shaping up. Again, the 10 tips, just ignoring signals, not paying attention to what is being drafted, overvaluing rarity, ignoring the curve, not prioritizing removal, overextending, not thinking about your sideboard, ignoring signals from previous rounds, playing too predictably, not adjusting mid-draft, and forgetting about synergy all in one. These are the last 2 picks. I hate that card. And then we got a forest to end it. And this is kind of a little bit what the draft looks like. I picked Silencia on the left. It is 1-0 right now in best of 3. And we're going to see how it's going. More videos of this deck will be uploaded soon. Thank you so much for sticking around. Take care.